Hello world, this is Shruti Pandey, and today I have with me Sabarinath sir, who is the CEO and founder of Skillveri. Hello sir, so good to have you on my platform and to ask you questions. It's really an honor.
Thank you, Shruti. It's my pleasure to be here.
In case you want to share any more knowledge about what Skillveri does or anything that you want to start before I start asking you questions, please feel free to maybe just go ahead with it.
Sure. So Skillveri is a multi-skill simulation platform. Now I think it would fall into what is now worded as the metaverse. But we were doing this kind of stuff for much longer before this word became fashionable.
Right.
So we have simulators for all the hard skills. So when I say hard skills as opposed to soft skills, things that work that is done with hands. So skills like welding, spray painting, blasting. So manufacturing kind of skills where the quality of movement of your hand has an impact on the output. So we build simulations for that. I'm happy to share that we have become world's #1 in spray painting simulation and India's #1 in welding simulation.
Thank you so much. I mean, knowing you and through our conversations, I understand this platform, but I just wanted the world whoever sees this video to know more about it and to understand that we have been specializing in this field from India for a very long time now. It's not something new. So goes to you and many congratulations on that, sir.
Thank you.
So can I kickstart with our questions that I've prepared for you? All right.
Yes, sure.
So my first question for you is, how did you come up with the solution for skills simulator platform really?
So this actually goes back to a conversation with one of my friend and ex-boss long back, 13 years or so. So he said, there is something that he is building and then that's going to be a lot of work done at the ITI level. So I didn't know much about ITIs at that point of time. This friend of mine is from IIT and I was wondering, why should someone from IIT be doing stuff for ITI? So I didn't understand much. So yeah, I left the conversation there. But a little over a year after that, I was reading the newspaper and then I read this news report saying that the Delhi Metro and the Delhi Airport Terminal 3, these are two things that we Indians are very proud about. So it was said that in that article that Delhi Metro had workers being brought in from Peru to dig a tunnel, and the T3 terminal was built using Chinese labor. So that got me thinking, why should a country with 1.3, 1.4 billion people, with 70% of them being youth, employable age, with so much of unemployment here, why are we bringing people from China as well as all the way around from across the globe called Peru?
Right.
So that got me thinking. That made me read up a lot more, and then I understood this skilling landscape and how there is something called as a skill gap. I think as engineers, we all understand skill gap. Every now and then NASSCOM will in some interview say that only 25% of engineers are employable.
Yeah.
So the situation is worse in the vocational side. Only 5% of people get any kind of formal training. Everybody is self-taught. So it's a huge gap. A country like Germany or Korea has 95% people being formally trained. So in India, we become engineer without doing anything much. But in these countries, you have to first.
Yes, basically.
Yeah. So in these countries, you have to go through a very rigorous practical hands-on training. So you become an ITI person, then you become a polytechnic person, then you become an engineer. You don't straight away do a shortcut, write an exam, and then become engineer without knowing to make stuff by your own. So that's a cultural difference between a country like Germany or Korea. And we admire these countries for their engineering marvels, but that's the reason. The reason behind is that they focus on skill. So back then I started understanding about skill gap, and then it was then said that India needed to add 50 crore skilled people over the next 10 years. And the output of engineering plus polytechnic plus ITI put together was some 50 lakh every year. So 50 lakh every year makes it 5 crore in 10 years, but not 50 crore in 10 years. So So then I connected back with my friend and I started understanding in depth. So he was explaining to me that unless you bring technology, you cannot scale. So if you have something to be built, if you are doing it in the physical way, then, and if you make some changes to deliver the change to all the ITs across the country, which are about 15,000 in number, is going to cost a lot of money. So all that factors there. When you bring in digital aspects, so then the initial cost might be high, but the incremental cost of adding one more learning module or one more skill to it is much lesser, and the cost of distribution is also much lesser. So then I quit my job under him in that company to start another company with him, which became Skillveri. And first day I spent in a factory in Hosur, which is near Bangalore, understanding how welding gets done and how how that level work happens. So I spent a lot of time in the shop floor. Me and my early team, 5 of us had joined hands. So we spent time in understanding the actual challenges at the shop floor level, and then started to build a prototype. And then we gave the prototype to one or two companies that we knew, and that prototype was well received. One of the welders who won a competition, he said, I could win it because I used your product. So that was a big happy moment for us. So that's how we came into the skill development space. And then once we started, giving products on welding, then they said, you have solved our problem in welding, but whatever we weld, we do painting also. So why don't you do something for that? So then painting became the adjacent skill. So like that, we now have multiple skills, multiple products on a single platform. Earlier, they were all separate products. Now, some 3-4 years back, we brought them under the same umbrella, so that because many times there are overlap. Somebody needs welding, somebody needs painting, somebody needs blasting. So why sell them different products? Just send them different attachments. So welding needs a welding gun, so give them that. If they later need a painting thing, then you upgrade the software and also give a real paint gun in their hand. So same platform with different attachments, different skills, different software modules. So that's how it came about.
Thank you for sharing that story with us, because it totally makes sense why to come up with a solution like this. And for a person like me who always wants to understand, like, why did we do this in the first place? Where is this coming from? So this actually adds essence to why create a skill training platform. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So my next question is, what's the difference between XR, AR, or VR? Because now that you're making all this skill training through a simulation platform, it would probably help us understand if there is a difference between these three terms.
Yeah. So there is a lot of the difference is actually in the marketing spiel that many companies would want you to believe. But there are some small fundamental differences. So amongst all these, VR is the earliest. Though we would tend to think that VR or AI, for that matter, is a very new subject. These are all very old subjects. Like the first VR headset was actually built in 1968. It was so huge and so heavy that it had to be suspended from the ceiling, and then you had to go underneath and put your head inside that. 1968, like that old. So it's not a latest technology kind of thing. But the VR works by principle that you are taken to a different world, which is artificially created, and that you achieve by shutting out the real world. So you wear a headset. The headset covers out the real world, and there is a display inside which will show you things that you want to see. So think of VR like a 3D movie. All of your audience would have for sure watched a 3D movie. So 3D movie, you're sitting in a chair and you're looking at a screen and you're wearing a special kind of glass. And because you're wearing that special kind of glass, the items in the screen, they feel like they're coming towards you.
Right.
So you get a sense of depth. So imagine if the 3D movie is not only in one direction, but is in all direction. Like you're sitting, you turn any side, there is a movie and there is something coming towards you.
Right.
Now imagine if you could interact with that. In 3D movie, you cannot interact. If a ice cream comes towards you, you cannot go and grab it.
Correct.
But imagine if you're able to interact with that. You can pick something, you can put it somewhere else, you can shoot something. So that is kind of VR. You are in a artificial world. We are not seeing the real world at all. So that's what VR is. The advantage with VR is that it is 3D. You see depth. You can perceive depth. AR is a relatively newer technology where I think mobile phones made it much more easy and accessible. So in AR, what happens is that you have the output of a camera. Like, on a mobile phone, you are putting an app, and then the app takes the camera output, and then it draws over the output of the camera. Like the most common thing that became very popular during the pandemic was to, on Google, you put snake, and then you say search. So it'll give an option saying that see in 3D. If you click that, it'll ask you to position your phone such that it sees a flat surface like a table or your floor. And then it can put a snake in the mobile output. So your real house or table does not have a snake, but the camera takes the floor or the table and then puts a 3D drawing of a snake on top of it. So if you move around, you can see, like, if you look only through your phone, it would seem to you like there is a snake on your table. It can be a dinosaur or something like that. So that's a very fancy, catchy, short-lived experience. But in the real factory world, the applications of AR are humongous. Like you have a machine which you are not sure how to maintain it, or there is some operation to be done. So if you have an AR app for that particular machine, you put the camera in front and then switch on the app. The app will look for patterns, and then that patterns, it will tell you this knob is for adjusting this thing. You press this lever for something else. So that kind of way AR can guide you. The limitation of AR is that it is on a 2D screen. So you're seeing it on a mobile phone or something, or any such screen. So you cannot perceive depth. You can only see in 2D. You cannot see in 3D. So that is AR. Now then, at the intersection of these two, AR and VR comes MR, mixed reality, where you see part of real world and part of virtual world. So MR comes through maybe spectacles kind of things which have a translucency which can be adjusted. So you can get a display on your spectacles, for example, and it can either show you the full world or it can partially show you, and then it can overlay something. Like it can do VR work as well as AR work. So that is mixed reality. Now, XR is actually an umbrella term which encompasses all AR, VR, and XR. Like, XR is a superset of AR, VR, and MR. The work that we do at Skillveri, we felt that certain of these hand skills need certain haptic feel. So sometimes the weight of a welding gun or the weight of a painting gun is critical, in which case you have an object in real world, which is a painting gun or a welding gun, but you put a sensor on it. And then therefore, when you are seeing it in the virtual world, it comes in at the same place as you would find, the real world and virtual world has to kind of match. Let me try and share my screen so that it becomes a little more easier. Otherwise,
Wow.
You may have to make me allow to share my screen. You may have to make me a host.
Yeah, just a second. Yes, you can share your screen.
Yeah.
Can you now?
Yeah. So in this screen, what you're seeing now, there is somebody wearing a headset, but also holding some real world objects in their hands, like a welding gun. So you see a sensor attached to it. You see a painting gun here. Again, you see a sensor attached to it. So when a person wears the headset, and if somebody else is bringing the gun with the sensor, he sees it at the same distance as it in the real world. So when he reaches out, he can grab the real welding or painting gun, and it's exactly where he sees it in the virtual world. The rest of the worlds are totally different. The common factor is the tool that he uses to operate. So that sense, we are blending real world and virtual world in a 1:1 scale. And that becomes very critical for this kind of training. It is not critical in all kind of application, but somewhere where perceiving the distance is critical, having the weight of the tool is critical. So then this becomes quite useful. So yeah, so this XR is a marketing term. It's a generic term, but at Skillveri we have been using it where we selectively blend real world and virtual world. So the tools exist in both real world and virtual world. That's common between the two worlds, but the other things are very different between like there is no paint coming out in the real world, or there is no spark happening in the real world, but it happens in the virtual world. So anything that is costly and dangerous, we move to the virtual world.
So what do you attribute or give the full form to an XR? Like VR is virtual reality, AR is augmented reality. How would you term?
It is extended reality. The EXT, that EX, that X is for XR.
And what about the MR? MR is
mixed reality.
Mixed reality. Oh my God. Oh, it makes sense. All of these realities do exist. And you were giving me the example of, the augmented part where, okay, I can make that snake appear when I place the mobile. It also reminded me of one crazy phenomenon and madness that was going where everybody was catching Pokemon here and there. A couple of years back, and they were just so crazy all the time. There's a Pokemon here, there's a Pokemon there. I collected this, and there was all sorts of things going on. It literally reminded me of that. And you're right, it's just like a moment of time where this sort of thing happens, and then it like goes away, and you're like, okay, what happened?
So the key thing is like, technology has to be a tool. It can be a tool for entertainment also. The entertainment value is not trivial, but technology is a tool. Most of the time we find that this virtual reality or XR or metaverse, all this gets talked about just like that, for the sake of it. Ki latest kuch kar rahe hain, dikhane ke liye you have to bring in these things. So it shouldn't be like that. Any technology that you use or build should solve somebody's problems. Only then it becomes relevant.
Yes, I think which is why I connect with you at a greater level, because I also am a big believer of solving a problem, right? Like, why add to miseries? There is already plenty on this planet. Like, create something that solves and helps really somebody. So it totally appeals to, my core conduct also, which brings me to our final question, which is, how can your platform be leveraged for Edtech or educational technology purposes in schools and colleges? Like, why just skills? Why not train them before? Like you already mentioned, right? Germany and other countries. I think what they did with the skills thing is they were preparing people, right? They were educating beforehand before getting them into the workforce. Then why not get these things in our educational system?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting application, and I think it'll become mainstream very soon. The challenge with a field like EdTech is that it has become very heated up, very hyped up. Lot of unicorns being present in EdTech. So companies are raising $1 billion every other day, and then they're buying companies.
Cricket and other sports.
Yeah. So I don't know whether you had seen this forward. I felt it is very relevant. That it says that Indian parents prevent any spend from sports and put money only into education. They don't encourage sports at all. Right. And then Byju's takes that money and then gives it to sports. Like, they're the official sponsor for FIFA.
So so ironic.
Yeah. So in education, I think the moment has not yet come, but I think it would come any moment. It sounds very cliched, but if you look at headsets, recently I read a report which said that by 2026 there'll be a total of some 80 million headsets out in the world, and 2026 alone will ship at least 50 million headsets. And it looks to be true because if you look at any of the large companies, Facebook or Meta already has a headset company. They have purchased Oculus. Google and Apple are both working on their own headsets. And there are already some 5 or 6 players which make different headsets of different quality and other things. So all the articles that I'm reading, the only debate is whether will it become as popular as a mobile phone, or will it be only as popular as a smartwatch? Smartwatch is not ubiquitous, but it is still popular. So which level will a headset become? So in US, the Oculus Quest is costing only $300, which is not very, very high. It's quite affordable. So will it come down to $100? Will it then people might $300. It's actually much cheaper than a mobile phone. If you look at a flagship mobile phone, most of them are $700, $800 to $1,000. So VR is much lesser costlier these days, and therefore the applications are also much more possible. What you could not do 2-3 years back, you could now do very effectively in VR. And in general, I think today all the Edtech companies, they use 3D animations, but everything is delivered on a 2D screen. Either it's a laptop or a TV or a mobile phone. And you may be able to turn and see things, but you are still seeing it in a separate thing. It's the difference between watching a 3D movie in a theater versus watching it on a phone, seeing it on Netflix on your phone. So there's a difference between the feel to it. We always say that that movie you have to go and see it in theater only. So same effect. There are certain lessons which if you deliver in 3D immersive manner, it will be much more effective. You will remember it much more. Let's take the example of projectile motion. We are all taught projectile motion, and there'll be some equation. The best way to understand projectile motion is to pick a stone and throw it.
Correct.
Okay. But it is dangerous to use that method, in a large scale. There are going to be a lot of windows that are going to be broken. So, but if you ask a kid to pick a stone and throw and observe how it goes, then that parabola might be much better understood by the kid than drawing it on a blackboard. Now, it is also said that this Angry Birds was the best way to teach projectile motion. I think it was true for a good extent. You're seeing a parabola in action. You are seeing which angle will give you maximum range, all that you are seeing. Now, VR gives you the possibility to bring it in 3D. You can feel like you are in a place and then you have something on, and you are given a stone and you have to throw it at that. So you can feel it, do it in VR and you can feel it. Now, the advantage with VR is also that you can not only throw it in Earth, but you can program it such that you can give it different G values. You can see how long it will go if you throw it on the moon, or how less it will go if you throw it on Jupiter.
Correct.
So now, if you think of it that way, there are a lot of things that can be much better delivered in a metaverse kind of situation. And there are lots and lots of such applications where I think another aspect is that all these current solutions, they teach subjects in silos. And even the schools teach subjects in silos. When you are in history class, you learn only about history. When you are in physics, you learn only about physics. But real world has a mixture of everything. So, for example, if you look at electrolysis, you have a situation where you get hydrogen and oxygen. I have never done electrolysis in my real life, but you also know that hydrogen is combustible, and if you mix them in a certain ratio and then put a spark inside, it will burn. And this is actually rocket fuel. So you can actually teach electrolysis, rocket fuel and combustion, and projectile motion all in one same exercise. Let me see if I can share a video. This is something we had built recently as a prototype. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Hello?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Right. So, once you wear, the video doesn't do justice because you have to wear it in 3D and feel the immersion. But whatever is possible with 2D, I'm going to show you. So the person who is wearing the headset is going to feel like he is inside a chemistry lab. And he has this apparatus in front of him. The apparatus, and he can use his real hands. He doesn't need to use any tracker or controller like what you had tried when you had met me in Bombay. So So you are turning on the electrolysis, and so this is me using the product in my office. So I'm using my hands and I'm seeing a test tube in front of me. I'm going and grabbing it, and this is what I see inside. So I'm filling the hydrogen, and they bring it to the burner, and it burns with a pop. You take it from oxygen and try and do it with the burner, it will not burn. So I'm taking the splinter, and I bring the splinter in, it starts burning better.
Yeah.
So here I have this pellet which has been filled with hydrogen and oxygen in a 2:1 ratio. And if I press this button over here, it will put a spark inside the pellet. And with this lever here, I can adjust the angle at which the pellet is kept. So it will tell me what was the distance it traveled and what was the height it reached, etc. Why teach one thing alone? So this entire thing is a 1-minute exercise. So it fits into the attention span of a kid. So instead of teaching electrolysis in a boring way, projectile motion separately, rocket science separately, you blend all this into one single exercise where you can go from one to another and feel more, involved in it.
Suddenly I feel so privileged that I saw this. And in the years to come, when people will start using this, I'll be like, you know what, I was the lucky one to see it before it becoming the thing. So yeah, seriously, thank you for that amazing presentation. I was not prepared for it, in the interview. I was like, oh my
No,
God.
if you try it in person, it will be even more immersive, like seeing your hands in VR and then interacting with it.
Yeah, and I think given the amount of hefty fees that the parents these days pay to schools, this is a better utilization of all that money to teach them something worthwhile. Because if from an open or maybe a closed classroom, we went to different definitions of classroom, and then we went to, the kids studying on mobile phone because that's what they had, and if they're not having a laptop. So all of this really makes sense. Like, this is the next level of education. Wow. This is really great. Yeah, I'm not sure how many schools have already enrolled for this, and suddenly it looks like I am pitching for this, but I'm just so marveled at what you created. Yeah, really. This looks something phenomenal. And I just hope and pray that people start using this, because this looks like a wow factor to me, and this is something that will appeal to the kids, right? Because I think everybody's losing their faith in the educational system, so we need to get back to some education in some form or the other. Oh. I seriously love the presentations, this one and the one before. I was not prepared for it, frankly speaking, sir. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for showing us all this amazing magic and AR and VR. This really looks phenomenal to me. Any parting words which you may have for us before wrapping up this session?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's a good initiative that you're doing. Like, it's many times what I hear is that a lot of good work happens here in India, and then people don't know about it. And so your questions are also very relevant and simple, and so I appreciate that you are having this initiative, and I wish that this becomes one of the most popular podcasts or video casts that people who have to learn about things in tech in India should, this should be the place to come to.
Oh my God. I thank you so much. You've spoken so highly of me. Even I don't think so highly of me. I just created this platform or medium or whatever. I mean, I just wanted people to understand that there are good things here. And I mean, thank you for accepting my questions. It's all because of you people who give me your time and the grace that okay, I'll answer your questions, because yeah, I'm just myself when I ask questions. So it's actually thank you to all you amazing people and beautiful people who give me that honor and privilege to do this. Really.
And of course, people who are enthusiastic like you, who are figuring out which is the interesting things around the world, and then bringing them together.
I mean, I hope I'm able to do justice to whatever I'm trying. I mean, I wanted to do this since the past 2 years, but again, pandemic, everybody having time to their tea, no bandwidth and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it didn't look like a feasible option back then, but now I was like, what is stopping me now? What is the next excuse I'm taking for myself? And probably I shouldn't be doing that. So I highly appreciate your encouragement, really. I mean, nobody till now has said such amazing words for me. So
You have taken the most important step, which is to start. Like the rest of the things will flow.
yeah, keeping my fingers crossed, and thank you
Yeah.
so much, sir, for giving me your time and for those amazing presentations that you showed to us to make people realize and understand what we are doing in India and taking it to the next level. So thank you so much. It's really a pleasure having you speak to us and answer my questions.
Thanks a lot, Shruti. Had a good evening and all the best for your podcast.
Thank you. Bye.